morning. This is a roundtable discussion about the book that we're reading through Lent called Living His Story. Now we're on chapter 4, which is all about communicating our faith with other people around us. So I wonder whether we could all introduce ourselves. I'm Ali, I'm a student vicar in the parish. Who wants to go next? Far away.
Well, I'll go. My name's Jay, and I'm married to you, and you're sitting up there on my screen.
Well, I'm the other Jay, and that's slightly awkward because you just pointed at me to say you were married to me.
Hi, I'm Tony.
Hi, I'm Kat, and I'm married to him.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us to talk about communicating our faith this morning. So I thought we might start with just a little quick rundown. Jay will have shared his reflection by now. So on Monday, you will have seen the reflection of the chapter. And I thought we could just talk about it a little bit just as a run-up, as an introduction. So the chapter is mainly about communicating our faith, how we do that, how we share our experiences of our encounters with Jesus with other people. So on that note, when we see Jesus encountering those around him in conversation, we see him allowing himself to be interrupted. Have you ever experienced an interruption that turned out to be a God moment? And how might you become more prepared for interruptions in your everyday life?
Well, I'll jump in. So I think I've had a couple of these sort of moments, in particular in the last few years in a work context. And I remember sort of having some moments with it was when I first started my current job. I started to build a relationship with a guy who I was working with on a project. Didn't really have any understanding of who he was, but kind of knew him and got to work with him quite closely. And then I started going to a prayer meeting at work. And in the first meeting that I went to, about halfway through, the door opens and this guy walks through. I was like, oh my goodness me. And it was that wonderful moment where kind of God was putting people around me to have that moment of being able to interrupt and then to start to build our faith and to be encouraged. So there was that moment for me. And then there was another one where really crazy busy day. It's probably about 18 months ago. It was pre-pandemic, so it wasn't really busy. And one of my direct reports came up to me and said, look, I really need to have a chat. And we went off to a side room to have a conversation. And she kind of opened up and just broke down and talked about a whole load of stuff that was going on in her life, some illness, some stuff with parents and family relations. Got to be a moment where we were just able to sort of listen to where she was at. That was all great. And she wore a cross quite openly. And I kind of said, look, I'm a Christian. Would it be appropriate? Would you like me to pray for you? And she said yes. And we just shared a moment there, being able to just ask God into the situation, which was really great. I probably would have made time, but it was a really busy day, and that was a direct impact on what I was doing that day, and I didn't get some stuff done. But yeah, bigger things going on there.
I think my example, I guess, would be again work related. One of the things I've kind of made or intimated to most of the people I work with is that if they got any issues, they got any problems, and they just want to talk, they can call me anytime. And as normal in a work environment, you don't expect anybody to take you up on it, if I'm brutally honest. And then I got a phone call out of the blue from one of my colleagues who was really struggling through his children having lots of issues with lockdown and stuff. And he was in a pretty bad place. And he rang me and he was just telling me everything that was going on. And I just listened to what he said. And then just suddenly felt the need to say to him, well, my house group is meeting this evening. Would you like us to pray for him? And his comment was just literally, well, I'm not very religious, but yeah, absolutely. And you just think, well, it's just a simple comment, but you've off the back of listening. And a lot of it is just listening. That interruption tends to be So it interrupts your day, but yeah, I just listened, and I didn't expect the response I got, to be fair.
Yeah, I can think of times at work where both those sorts of things, both sort of pastoral moments where somebody's come and chosen me to talk to, or has answered my question of how are you, and actually answered it, and we've had a conversation and been able to support somebody and encourage somebody in those situations. And sometimes I've had conversations that I remember sitting in the office and somebody came to me who I knew was a Christian, and we ended up sitting in a big open plan office talking about how the Lord speaks to us through words of knowledge, and encouraging one another to hear from God. And you sort of see the ears of various people who are trying to look busy around you, listening away, or other instances where I've ended up praying for somebody for healing who doesn't know the Lord, and was able to pray with him and say, look, I'm a Christian. If you would like me to, I believe that God heals. So we could always ask. I've no idea what will happen, but let's have a go. And stood there. It was a more private setting. Prayed with that person for their back, I think it was, and it got better a few days later, which I'll still claim, but it wasn't some dramatic moment. But I mean, so it happens in the course of daily work, and I think the key is being available, willing to be interrupted, and asking God to just lead the way and give opportunities and make you. I think it's about listening to Him and the promptings of the Spirit as much as anything else, isn't it? And just sort of thinking, well, Lord, this might be you. So let's see where it goes.
One of the best bits of wisdom I think that I ever heard, and I have to remind myself of it daily, is that you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. Yeah. So you should listen twice as much as you speak. Absolutely. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very easy, isn't it, to get going with the conversation, start talking and jabbering away, rather than actually listen to the person that comes to talk to you.
Yeah, it really is, isn't it? And so how about actually sharing your faith? How would you feel comfortable in it? Part of the book talks about our personality types being completely different. Each one of us is made uniquely, and we're made to feel comfortable in different ways, and we're comfortable with different things. And I really liked that part of it. There isn't kind of one way to share our faith, but what sort of ways work for you in sharing your faith or your experiences of Jesus with those around you?
I think there's 2 things that when I read this question before, and I was kind of forced to face how I work or what I think I can or can't do. And I think for me, there's kind of 2 positions. There's kind of the passive and what I would call the active. And a lot of people are very aware of the active. So it's the street work and stuff like that, which I am quite comfortable doing. But sharing my faith one-on-one is not so easy for me. So then I look at the passive, which is for me, is actions speak louder than words. It's the being what you should be. And it's, I call it passive because it's something that we're called to love everybody. So for me, it's kind of, if we start from a position of love, then we are in sense sharing our faith just by loving the people around us. So that's kind of my idea of passive and active. I'm sure that's not something that is generally used as topics, but for me, that's how I split the 2. So I'm much more comfortable, which is surprising as I'm an introvert, I'm much more comfortable doing stuff that is to lots of people. So, whether it's street work or whether it's performance, than I am perhaps so much one-on-one, although I'm finding I'm getting opportunities at work and stuff to do that more now, which is but it's recognizing those opportunities as well. So that's kind of my comment.
I think for me, I'm a real extrovert. I love being with people, talking with people. I get my energy from being around people, and yet I always found it very difficult to bring up the faith conversation with people, until one day at work we were sat in the office and it was a Monday morning, everyone was having that normal conversation, what did you do at the weekend and everything. And a friend who had grown to know over a period of time just turned around, just went, well, I went to church and we had this really good service. And that was the moment I was suddenly able to sit there and say, oh yeah, so did I. And start talking about it. And it became this routine then on a Monday morning. We'd come into the office and then 2 or 3 of us who had kind of been in this room at the time all started talking about what had happened at church and what the conversation had been about. And it actually then started to become natural for us to talk to each other. And then if other people heard and wanted to join in, it was really open for them to do so. And that was kind of that first piece where I was able to kind of start talking about faith at work. And actually more and more people then got to start, because people knew that's what we were doing, it became a really natural conversation and just part of life. And then people started coming to talk to you about things and really opened that up. But it's, even as an extrovert, it was a really difficult thing to be able to do to start with.
I think we make it into a big deal. I'm not sure it is really. I mean, it's about being ourselves, and as you say, actions speak louder than words. There's a reason why people will come to you and speak to you about what's going on in their life, and it's not because you're a horrible person that nobody likes in the office. It's because you are consistently somebody who is kind and gracious and seen as patient, and somebody you would naturally go and talk to. Right? If God is at work in our lives, if we allow the Spirit to shape who we are, then we are transformed into people who are loving, who are kind, who are patient, who are warm, who have a hope. And those are people that those are the people I want to go and talk to when I want to share what's going on in my life and seek some support and stuff, or if I've got stuff going on. And out of that, naturally, I think we can share, if people want some advice on a situation or just want some support, those questions of where that comes from, or even in part of our answers, well, I would do this, or I would approach it like this because I'm a Christian, and because I think that this is what God is like, and he loves us and he loves that person, and so we could do this or that. And there just becomes a more gentle openness about why we would approach life like that. And it becomes a bit more normal to say, well, I would approach this like this because that's what God is like. Isn't he brilliant? And I also find that if we're asking God for opportunities to say, God, I love these people, these are my friends, I want them to know about you because you're fantastic, and it would be great for them to know your love, would you give me a chance to share that? Then stuff happens. Might not happen every day, might not happen regularly, but it does happen.
Yeah. I think it's a case of not following the expected pathways. I mean, one of the things that you come across in my line of work is a heavy reliance on blame culture. So one of the things that makes you stand out is when you're the person who doesn't blame anyone, because, one, it's not productive anyway, but you stand out. People start saying, oh, well, you don't blame anybody, do you? Just get it sorted. And those are the sort of things that when you realize that you're having an impact on people, just by being, as you say, just by being yourself and not and approaching everything from a position of love rather than accusation. And I think it's quite important. And I think the other comment I would make as well is that when you use the term evangelism, everybody tends to think of the Bible thumping, boards and the speakers, but actually everybody, we're called to be witness, which is effectively a form of evangelism. It is by actions and by who you are, rather than is as important, or if not more important, than the people that stand on street corners preaching.
Absolutely, it's in our lifestyle, isn't it? We can model Jesus's character to other people around us, and often that has much more power than our words. It's the actions, isn't it? And it's both and, I think, isn't it? Amazing. Thank you so much, everyone. That was such a great conversation on sharing our faith, and I hope that is really helpful to you guys in the parish.